This episode discusses a real criminal case and may contain disturbing content. All information presented in this video was obtained from publicly available sources. I do not claim to know any of the individuals involved, nor do I have any inside or private information beyond what has been made public. Any commentary shared is strictly my own personal opinions, observations, or questions that I formed while reviewing the case. Viewer discretion is advised. Today's story takes us to Alba, Texas, a small town where the Caffey family lived just like most families, never expecting tragedy to strike. Shortly after 3 a.m. on Saturday, March 1st, 2008, two armed men would enter a home with one purpose. By the time the sun would rise in Alba, Texas, a mom, two young sons would be dead, and the dad would be fighting for his life. The teenage daughter, well, time would tell her fate. The small town of Alba was like most towns, where people knew each other well, and church played a central role in the community life. Families were often described by their values, well before they were known for their struggles. Terry and Penny Caffey were devout Christians and a part of the Miracle Faith Baptist Church. Terry was a youth pastor, and his 16-year-old daughter, Erin Caffey, sang in the choir. Erin's parents, Terry and Penny, believed in structure, discipline, and faith as the foundation of their household. Their home was strict by modern standards, with rules about music, clothing, relationships, and behavior. Church attendance was not optional, and rebellion was not tolerated. The Caffey children had been homeschooled for 3 years prior and were taught Bible-based curriculum. It has been reported that Erin had been diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, and that had played a major role in the decision to homeschool the kids. The kids had been re-enrolled in school just 6 weeks before that fateful night in 2008. Erin Caffey seemed like a normal teenager, pushing the limits and not a fan of curfews or limitations set by her parents. And while rebellion is a part of adolescence, rebellion in this case would prove to be far more complicated. Tensions grew in the family home with Erin due to disagreements with her parents, punishments, restrictions, and distance put between her and what she wanted. This tension would continue to grow and build, especially after Erin's relationship would be put in jeopardy, a relationship that would become a very central part of this story. Erin met Charlie Wilkinson in 2007 while working at Sonic Drive-In. The pair quickly became inseparable, and their relationship grew fast and intensely, a relationship that would challenge the family's core values and push the limits of her parents. Although Terry and Penny tried to be supportive of Erin and Charlie's relationship, they were very cautious to accept it without some limitations and rules. They allowed the two to spend time together at the Caffey home and at church, however putting limits with curfews and other boundaries for the two of them. They allowed the relationship but still asked for respect and discipline. Erin's attachment to Charlie grew intensely, and it did not go unnoticed by her parents. Terry and Penny had several observations that made them feel uneasy about the relationship. Observations became somewhat alarming when they noticed the promise ring that Erin had been given by Charlie, and they told her to give the promise ring back, and they kept careful watch after that. After seeing what was located on Charlie's MySpace page, Terry and Penny then made the decision to set Erin down and tell her to end the relationship with Charlie. It's been reported by Terry that Erin's response surprised him. He says that although she did cry a little, she told them that she already had wanted to end the relationship, but just didn't know how to do it. This confused her parents because they were not expecting that response. So they just simply told her, consider it done. According to the reports, Erin followed through with her parents' request and ended the relationship with Charlie on February 27th, 2008, after church. Just 3 days later, in the early morning hours of March 1st, 2008, this teenage love story would rebel in a way that would change not only their own lives, but the lives of her own family and the entire community. What happened next was not spontaneous. It was not a horrible accident, and it was not the result of one bad day. It was a direct result of lies, manipulation, conversations, plans, and discussions that were made deliberately by Erin. Although she may not have acted alone, her contribution would directly lead to the destruction of her own family. The following is based on reports from the state prosecutor. In the early morning hours of March 1st, 2008, right around midnight, Charles Wade, 20, and his girlfriend Bobby Johnson, 18, would pick up Charlie Wilkinson, 19, and head to Erin's house, where Erin was home and assumed to be sleeping like the rest of her family. But Erin wasn't sleeping. She was waiting. Erin's parents, Terry and Penny, were asleep downstairs in the master bedroom. Erin's younger brothers, Matthew, 13, and Tyler, 8, were asleep upstairs. Sometime just after midnight, Charles, Bobby, and Charlie would arrive at Erin's house. They would be startled by the family dog and leave, all but abandoning the plan. During this time, Erin would reportedly call Charlie 11 times, begging him to come back and promising that she would take care of the dog. The three would return to Erin's house, picking Erin up along with her suitcase of her belongings, leaving the home a second time, and the four of them would go down the road and park at a nearby cemetery. For over an hour, Erin, Charlie, Bobby, and Charles would stay parked and talking about the plan. Now, according to reports, Charles Wade was in need of money, and supposedly Erin had promised him he could have the money in the safe from inside the home. Wade also claims that his girlfriend Bobby did not know anything about the plan. She had just insisted on riding along that night. It's also been claimed that Charlie was highly manipulated by Erin, and he believed that he was saving her from abuse. Nevertheless, in this hour, in the darkness, parked at the cemetery, any one of them could have changed their minds. They could have opted out and kept this tragedy from unfolding. But they did not change the plan. After an hour of regrouping, right about 3 a.m., the four of them would return for the final time. Parking out by the road, Charles and Charlie would get out, leaving Bobby and Erin in the car to wait. Charles and Charlie would enter the home through the front door, which was left unlocked by Erin, armed with 2 guns, a sword, and ladders. They would carry out their plan. They started this brutal attack on the first floor in the master bedroom. Charlie would shoot Terry at least 5 times and Penny at least once before the gun jammed. Charles would hand off the sword to Charlie, where he would then stab Penny so violently that she was nearly decapitated. Terry remembers the door to the master bedroom fly open and the knob hitting something, making a loud sound. Then he heard the gunshots. He saw one face that he would later recognize. Terry took 3 shots to the arm and 1 through the cheek. He was flung out of the bed by the shots and he fell unconscious on the floor. When he came to the first time, there was blood everywhere, and the sound of 2 male voices was all he could hear. He could hear them moving stuff around, and then silence. One of them did a final check to see if Terry was still alive before he heard the sounds of the guns reloading and the footsteps headed upstairs. While Terry tried to regain his strength to get up, he had heard Matthew saying, "Charlie, why are you doing this? No, Charlie, no," followed by more gunshots. Terry collapsed. 8-year-old Tyler was frightened and hiding in Erin's closet, where he was found and stabbed to death. It is unclear if one or both men were responsible for Tyler's death. Charlie Wilkinson has admitted to the attack on Terry and Penny, but has adamantly denied his part in 13-year-old Matthew and 8-year-old Tyler's death. They then proceed to set the house on fire and leave. Returning to the car, putting everything in the trunk, it was reported by the 3 of them that Erin was quoted saying, "That was effing awesome." Thinking their plan had been successful, the 4 would go and stash Erin's suitcase and get rid of any evidence except for a gun, planning to return later to retrieve whatever they needed. Bobby and Charles would drop Charlie and Erin off at Charles's brother's trailer and go home themselves. It's been reported that while Erin and Bobby were in the car waiting on Charles and Charlie to complete the plan, they got a call from Wade. Johnson says that Erin kept asking, "Are they dead? Are they dead?" And when the men reached the car, Johnson says she will never forget the sight of the sword with blood on it, and how she was freaking out, but Erin was jumping up and down in her seat with excitement. What the 4 of them didn't know was that Terry was still alive. Terry somehow miraculously woke up a second time, made it out of the house, and crawled for over an hour through the woods to the neighbor's house to get help. A longtime friend, almost family, his neighbor called 911, despite not knowing the full extent of the tragedy that had just occurred. He was able to get help to Terry and report the house fire. The investigation began. Terry was taken straight to the hospital, but before he left, investigators would get the name of the one person Terry had recognized: Charlie Wilkinson. While investigators searched the home, finding the bodies of Penny, Matthew, and Tyler, they would only find Erin's license, and she was considered missing at that time. Within 3 hours, Charlie was arrested from the same trailer he had been dropped off at. And when officers went in to allow him to put on a shirt and shoes, they would notice the chaotic mess inside, as well as blood evidence, a used condom, and a gun. Charlie was taken in for questioning, where he would reluctantly give up the names of Bobby and Charles. By 2 p.m., Charles was in custody, and Bobby followed soon after. Meanwhile, Terry is still in the hospital, and no one knows yet where Erin is. A search was underway at the trailer where Charlie had been arrested. A deputy sheriff's officer stated that in the cluttered room, he seen what he thought was a blonde wig. It was Erin Caffey. Erin claimed that she had been taken, medicated, and raped, stating that all she remembered was smoke, two black figures with a sword, and then she blacked out until the deputies woke her up. A talk screen and a test on her clothes would later reveal no smoke and that she had not been medicated. Bobby, Charles, and Charlie would all tell the same version of events. However, Erin would maintain she was telling the truth. While Terry was in the hospital, the deputies had told him that Erin had climbed out a window and she was safe. They waited until he was stable enough to be released to go home before they went to the hospital to inform Terry of Erin's involvement. He asked one question: what was her involvement, without details? The deputy simply said her involvement was great, and Terry broke down. Wade, Wilkinson, Johnson, and Caffey were arrested and charged with 3 counts of capital murder. The state prosecutor said that in pretrial meetings, while discussing the death penalty, that Terry had said, "He ate at my table." And from that, we can assume he was for the death penalty for Charlie and Charles. Terry has since spoken about the hatred that he had for Charlie and Charles. He even wrote a book about his experience. It's reported that each one of the defendants had bonds set for $1.5 million each. And although Erin was a minor when the crime was committed, Erin was tried as an adult and eventually held at the Hopkins County Jail. None of the 4, however, would face a trial. They would all face the reality of sentencing. On November 7th of 2008, Charles Wade and Charlie Wilkinson would take a plea and spare them from the death penalty, giving them both life sentences without parole. On January 2nd of 2009, just a few months after the 2 men were sentenced, Bobby Johnson would be named as an accomplice who did not use a weapon. She was sentenced to 40 years in prison and would be eligible for parole after serving 20 years. On the same day, January 2nd of 2009, Erin Caffey would plead guilty accepting a plea that would give her 2 life sentences and being eligible for parole when she is 59 years old. Wade has since expressed remorse for the crime, and Johnson maintained she didn't know the plan until that night, and after being threatened by Wilkinson, she had to go along with it. A close person to Charlie Wilkinson says that she believes Charlie was manipulated and used by Erin. Still today, Erin Caffey shows no remorse, and to my knowledge has never admitted or even acknowledged her role in the deaths of her family. Terry still stands by his daughter and has since forgiven all of those involved. Caffey reportedly said that her dad had told her, "Even if you had been the one to shoot me, I'd still love you." Neighbors and community members think that Terry is in denial and they don't understand why they still have a relationship. But still, he stands by her. Today, Bobby Gail Johnson is housed in the Christina Melton Crane Unit in Gatesville, Texas. She has a release date of March 1st, 2048. Erin Caffey is held at the Hobby Unit in Marlin, Texas. Charles Wade is held at the Beto Unit, a maximum security unit in Tennessee Colony, Texas. And Charlie Wilkinson is held at the J. Dale Wainwright Unit, reportedly in Lovelady, Texas. This is not a story meant to shock. It's a story meant to warn, to examine, and to remind us that choices made in moments of emotional intensity carry permanent weight. But the simple truth is, no amount of explanation can soften this. Because at the end of the day, there are empty chairs, lives cut short, and a future forever altered by a decision that cannot be undone. It was her choice, their deaths.